my co-host. Welcome
Hi,
to
everyone.
Matters Live.
Yes.
All right. We have these wonderful conversations every Wednesday, and a lot of times we because we're trying to be sensitive to the current events and things that are going on personally with our lives. A lot of times we don't plan them out and schedule them out, weeks and months in advance. So I get to share with you what's going on in my world. So what's going on in my world is I've got a book coming out. I'm a collaborative. It's a collaborative book called Overcoming Mediocrity, and that the particular edition is Unstoppable Women. So in this particular context, it's a group of women authors, which one of these days I'd like to reach out to the publisher and actually come up with like family advocacy authors collaborative book. That would be so amazing. Anyway, back to it. So I published on my social media the book, and it's coming out. I think it's coming out the end of October, and it's my story. And it was a story.
Great. Congratulations. I need to throw that in there. Okay. Go ahead.
So it is my story, and it's something that it took me a long time, years, to have the courage to come out and be vocal and use my voice. And it's been a journey in healing. And I would say I started my nonprofit, Kids Need Both, back in 2004. And I was right in the midst of a high conflict custody battle, and I was super broken. But I also knew that other parents were broken as well and needed what I'd been able to collect by just furiously searching on the internet and finding more and more and more information. And I would bring that content in, and I would put it on. I was going through web school at the time, so I created a web page for it at all. So people wouldn't have to go to, if they could just get to my website, they would have access to all the stuff I'd spent researching. But I wanted to stay behind the scenes. I wanted to be like anonymous, and I thought, because there was something I was afraid of, and I was hiding it from myself that I was afraid of. I was afraid that my children, whom I had such a difficult connection with, if they knew I was doing this and I was, I put a face on it and gave them, and told my story, that they would stop loving me. They would reject me further. They would villainize me. I had this whole thing going on in my head that had me knowing people needed it, but not wanting to be the face of it, until about 3-4 years ago.
Well, I feel that way though, Danica. It's like I felt exactly the same way with that. I don't want to hurt them, and I want to heal and put it out there to help other people. And it's a challenge to be able to do that. So I get it. I agree with you.
Yeah, and I wrote the book actually during this pandemic. I wrote my portion, my story, and I've been through so many years of already healing, going through the healing process, and writing curriculum for parents, working with parents, become a family mediator, and all these things. But it wasn't until I was like halfway into the book, because you tell your story. I know my story well. That I had like an epiphany, and the epiphany was like the only way that you can really heal is to stop villainizing the other person as if you are the victim and they are the victimizer. And we're not talking about saying that they didn't do what they didn't do. They did, because they did. And it was very painful and very traumatizing for us. But I got that I would have never picked the partner I had if, if we both were not broken at some level.
And that's amazing. I need to throw this in, Danica, because it's important, so important when you're doing this healing work to actually take responsibility for what you brought to the table. So having said that, the reason I want to kind of clarify that is because a lot of the stuff we bring to the table to a relationship is all subconscious. We don't know. We attract subconsciously with people. We don't attract. We're not conscious about why we're attracting to them. So anything that we, experience in our childhood and all the stuff that they experience in their childhood is an actual attraction in that moment of where you're at in that moment, not where, because we are both two different people. We're all different people 10 years from or 20 years from, an experience. But in that moment, you attract at that experience. So that causes that, and being able to take responsibility for that piece of it is very, very important.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. It was pretty, it was an amazing thing, and it actually gave me freedom because I was living in this story of, I was trying to be nice because, I was trying to, like, pretending to myself that I was not throwing my ex under the bus, and yet I was. Like no kidding. I had evidence to prove, that I was a victim and he was a victimizer. And it was what gave me freedom is, everybody talks about forgiveness. It's so important to forgive people. And it's not about, you're letting go of the offense. There was something that one of our team members posted, and it was amazing. It was brilliant. I can't think of it now. Anyways, what gave me access is actually going and looking at what in the world must life have been for him as a 5-year-old? Like for him to, it must have been really, and I know that to be true because I know the history that had him be the way he was. And for me, my 5-year-old went through enough stuff such that we were both two broken people. And I was attracted to him and he was attracted to me. And I had to let that go and see him as his 5-year-old. And
sometimes it makes it a lot easier to forgive someone when you can picture them as the little child dealing with whatever they had to deal with in their childhood. And at the same time, being able to also forgive yourself, which is the most important, to be able to walk through this type of thing as well. But seeing them as a kid, it's hard to really hate that kid because you're looking at a picture in your head of them. Yeah. And you can forgive that. It's easier. It is.
And, and the other thing too, is that I got was, when I was a small child, was when I got that I did not have a voice, that I didn't have a right to feel things, that it was wrong to be upset, it was wrong to be angry, to cry, and I didn't have a voice in the matter. My parents were the authoritarians that I convinced, that's part of you developing as a human being. Is there's certain things that you develop, certain strong suits you develop out of reaction to certain things when you're like 6 years old or whatever. Something major in the scheme of things might have been a minor situation, like losing your parents in Walmart. Might have been a very insignificant thing, especially through the eyes of a parent, but from the eyes of a 5 or 6 year old, it could have totally shifted the way that you view the world.
Yeah.
And I would say that was definitely in my situation. There were certain things that happened that had me shift into my point of view was I'm not important. My voice doesn't matter. In fact, I am not allowed to speak my truth. So
that's very powerful that you're bringing that up. I'm trying to throw things in because I want to just share things that based off of your experience, it's like a lot of women feel that way. A lot of women feel like we don't have a voice. And then, you know, when for the situations or experiences that we've had with the men, I'm not into gender bias at all. I believe that this is a human issue, not a male, female, or mom, dad, or whatever. But it's so important to understand that I just lost my train of thought, and I'm being honest about this. So what was the last thing that you said so I can get back on track?
I just think that a lot of things that are programmed in us when we're really small affect us well into adulthood. I mean, I just turned 51 last week, and I'm still working on myself. I'm still getting epiphanies now where like for instance, I've had some major shifts. Once I had those epiphanies, I was able to let go of the things that were holding me back. Like some of the things that were holding me back, even as recently as this year, as far as, you know, not wanting to say unpopular things, not wanting to say things that might trigger my children rejecting me. I've finally, and it's been through this process of, you know, writing this book, like it's a difference. You know what you've got to do. Like it was something inside of me when I was given this opportunity to be a contributing author. I was like, I am seizing this opportunity, and yet I'm scared as hell.
Right.
I am like going on stage. That's another thing. Is like I've had this persistent problem with stage fright. Well, when I started looking at why do I have because when I was 5 years old, I was not allowed to speak my truth, and my voice didn't matter. So that totally is confronting with getting on stage and sharing with people.
You know, and it reminded me, because we talked earlier about this and I didn't want to miss the opportunity to share this part, and I'm not going to forget it. So here's the thing about being the parent, the alienated parent who is going through a situation, you know, like you wrote the book based off of your experience of who you are, where you came from, taking responsibility for your behaviors or your subconscious behaviors or whatever those things are that are coming into our existence because of the things that we experienced as children. And it goes the same way for the other person. So it doesn't mean the other person is, you know, we're going to throw them in the trash or whatever because they're toxic or whatever word you want to use for that. It's not about that. What it is that like being able to go through the healing process the way you've done. And as the alienated parent, we come from a space of knowing everything about what happened in this scenario. So we come from a space of knowing what happened with us. We come watching what happens with our children. We come watching what happens with our relationship with the other person. We come watching what happens to the other person and their behaviors start to become. So the most important thing that I've come to realize is that within this, people or our kids who are becoming adults, in order for us as alienated parents to walk through this and actually have a life, and this is trauma, this is big trauma. When we lose our children, we are devastated. It's painful, it hurts. It's like, well, first it's the marriage, you know, disintegrating in front of us, and then seeing the person that we thought we had a good relationship, that's disintegrating. And, you know, all these things that we're grieving of the things that we wish we could have had, and all these things happening, and more trauma about not being able to see our children. All these things are happening and we witness all of this. So we are deeply traumatized and still need to walk through it. And one day when our adult children can recognize that it's okay to protect, from your perspective, the other parent who was part of the process, also know that we were traumatized too. And it's a trauma that lives in us, in you, because you are our children, and in the other parent. So it's it's all family trauma. And by doing what Danica did with the book is to step out, to break through that generational trauma and stop this stuff in its tracks in the best way that she knew how to do it, and that she experienced the trauma that she had to deal with, and recognize taking responsibility for her own stuff that came with her into the relationship. Just like I've done this as well. It's like, I brought my stuff. I had a traumatic childhood emotionally, and it's just about hoping that the children can understand that we are also affected. And if we can't heal our trauma, we can't be there to support and be a safe stronghold space for you as children. So at least understand, or try to understand, that that's the purpose behind this, is so we can be strong for you, because you are just as traumatized and we have to heal. So I think that was what I wanted to get there.
It is when you're a child. In fact, it's just the design of, something I've learned in being a teacher is there are different stages that we go through. Whether when we're, there's a reason why the schools are broken down into elementary, middle school, and then high school, because you do go through distinct shifts in the way that you see the world. Anything that's elementary and younger, those children of that age, their whole world, it's almost like they view that their family, their friends are having the exact same family as they are. Their family is the center of their whole world. Mm-hmm. And then you hit middle school and people start questioning. They start questioning how things are done, and how come the Joneses have pizza every Friday night and they go to the movies. Why can't we do that? And then that's why in the middle school, sometimes they can be kind of a pain in the butt sometimes, because they're questioning the world. They're doing exactly as they're designed to do. Mm-hmm. Then of course, high school, they're like, family who?
Right, independent monster. Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I've actually been working on an article that I've been posting, but I want to do that now. I found some information from a family court in New Mexico, and it basically describes the growth and development of children at every age, and how it connects with divorce, and how they see these things, and how we can work with them, and how we can help ourselves to help them. And it was very interesting, and I wanted to show that, because a lot of times our children, I'm going to use a teenager, because they're the easiest ones to use. They're already going through enough trying to individuate from their family, and so sometimes as parents, in a normal situation, we're already like, why don't they want to be around us anymore? I don't understand this. So then you have alienation added to that. So I'm starting to see
perceived alienation.
Right.
It's like, why is my child not coming to me on my weekend? It's got to be because my ex is thwarting that.
Right. And that's one of the things I wanted to mention in there. It's because these children, they have their friends, they have their life, they're experiencing their life. They don't want their parents in the middle of all of this stuff that they want to experience. And by pushing ourselves on them, it's just contributing to their, when they're going through, they're trying to figure out what to do and how to be separate from us and all that. It's all normal. Yes. As an alienated parent, it feels like crap, because we're used to that. However, more than likely, they are not doing it because of the alienation. They're doing it because of their normal growth and development. And that is the hardest thing to accept. However, it's something that needs to be looked at, because that's what's happening. So,
I would say that's one of the reasons that I'm really a stand for 50-50 equal shared parenting. If, and I get that it's not something that works for every co-parenting situation. Mm-hmm. However, if at all possible, it is, if that would be the best case scenario in my estimation. And here's the reason is, is that I think it's the most normal of shared situations where you do like 7 days at this house and 7 days at that house versus flip-flopping them. I've seen it where the parents, they split up when the child was a toddler. So therefore, the parents are like, okay, I'll keep them for a day and a half, and then I'll hand them off to you for a day and a half. And then I'll get them for a day and a half, and you'll get them for a day and a half. Try that in middle school. You're going to lose your mind, and your child's going to lose their mind. Mm-hmm. A day and a half, like I'm like a yo-yo. It doesn't grow with the child, and then the child's going to rebel against that. And even every other weekend, the child will eventually rebel against that because they identify with the home that they're in the longest during the week as their real home. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's just so, I've seen it. I've had friends who did that whole, 2 days here, 2 days there, 2 days here, 2 days there. And I'm like, she's going into high school. Maybe you should go and renegotiate something that's a little bit more workable. But
there should be a specific plan for each age too, based off. In fact, that's what I found out in that article from the courthouse, is that you work with what you have, because each age is different. You're gonna experience different things. And the other part I was gonna ask you, it's like, I hear the 50-50 shared all the time, and I still try and figure out how to work that, because not every, like in our experience with my partner, he can't do 50-50 based off of his working, his work schedule. So it's not, however, he does still stay in his daughter's life, but it's not like even, it can't be even for him. And so the way I've had a conversation with Dawn, in fact, it's like, it has to be based off of what is equitable for each parent, so long as both parents have complete access to the child and the decisions made of the child. So to me, that's what the 50-50 is. It's not the time, it's the workability of doctors and school and this and that. That's the 50-50. Am I?
Absolutely, you're right on it. I mean, you cannot have a one-size-fits-all plan that works for everyone. Mm-hmm. And if you have a presumed, okay, so Caroline, you and I are co-parents. I'm going to presume that you're just as good as a parent as I am. Mm-hmm. And you could fill their needs just equally as mine. So therefore, our rights should be equal. And yet, Caroline, your work schedule has it that it just is not feasible for you to be co-parenting 7 days in a row. So therefore, you have the power to choose something different. It wasn't taken from you.
Right. Yeah.
It was something you gave to make workability happen.
Right. And that needs to be done between the parents. And that's one of the main things that, Danica and I and a few other people are starting to work on, many other people, but within our group, is having that opportunity to set it up where both parents can make those decisions equitably, and teaching the parents how to work through that type of stuff without, maybe with using a mediator and a therapist together, or a mediator, whatever that is, without having to go to court, because the court is going to make a decision based on a huge file on the judge's desk. He's never gone through all that paperwork. For God's sake, if you've ever done what are those things called? were you, they ask you all those questions. What are those things called?
Oh yeah, like a discovery and
yeah, all that. And there's another word begins with an I can't think of it right now, but you're answering like 18 pages of questions. Those judges don't have time to go through all that stuff.
yeah.
You know, so it's like, why would you first thing I would say is most people think that family court works the same way it's always worked, which really I don't think it ever has, but that's an opinion. And all these, you know, people in your family and friends are offering like, go there, they'll help you. Yeah, do this, do that. $50,000 later, $100,000 later, you haven't seen your children, nothing's happening. Why would you want to go to court? Why don't you get together with a mediator and do something here?
That's together? The thing is, people call me all the time to mediate. Their parenting plan has to evolve. So they come to me. They don't go to the courts first. They come to me. Unless there's no willingness on one side, then you'd have to go and petition the courts to send them to mediation, but you end up in mediation anyways. So you mediate to say what's working and what's not working and how can we, you know, create something workable.
Mm-hmm.
And mediation centered co-parenting, timeshare, divorce, and coming from an empowered context is way better for your future than litigation centered. If you are, there's no guarantees. This is the thing, as I tell people, like, get a coach to walk you through this, hold your hand, guide you, make you strong, empower you, mm-hmm. so that you're at the helm of your life. Mm-hmm. But if you, there's one guarantee is attorneys will take your money. There is no guarantees that you'll get what you want. Whereas a mediator, because I coach and I mediate, can guide you and help you to decide what's best for you.
Mm-hmm. And just as an addition too, like you do coaching to help people walk through their divorce, mm-hmm. then also having a coach to help you walk through your emotions so you can walk through this, because if you don't walk through your emotions, you are going to be stuck in insanity, and that's not going to help you. If you can't release the anger, if you can't work through the grief, if you can't work through the sadness, if you can't work through any of that stuff, you will continue to fight against something that you don't want to be fighting. You just want to be working through. And it's so important, like Danica is saying, that having somebody to guide you like that through all of those steps, to do that. And yes, I understand if you're in the middle of it and you've had all this happen and you're spending all this money and you don't have any money left and all that type of stuff, use self-help books to help you walk through, your emotional stuff if you need to at the get-go, until you get to a point where you can start, reaching out to a coach and doing the work or whatever. But you've got to do it or you're not going to be able to make those decisions because you're too distraught. And at the same time, you want your child to come back to you. And if you're so distraught, you're not safe because they're living with someone who is doing what they're doing. And then they can't come to you because you're not safe because you're emotional. So where do the kids go in the middle of all that? They're confused. So
true. It's like, and that's one of the reasons that we're creating our Hope for Families platform. Mm-hmm. And it's a platform community. It's a community on a platform. And much of it at the core is not only being able to get you to the professionals, the professional network that we've assembled and we've handpicked to be on the platform. Because how many times, Caroline, have we been called, do you know somebody who can help me, who's a mental health counselor, who's a forensics accountant, who's an attorney? And we were like, okay, well, first of all, you're calling from out of state, and
right, yeah,
I don't know anybody in Wyoming. There's just so many different variables when you're asking for a recommendation. So our goal is to is to curate all of these professionals and these experts together that are in the same vein and spirit and alignment with what we're up to, what we're a stand for, which is just families restored.
Yes, yes, yes.
Also getting you plugged into real groups, not these broadcasting platforms of social media where you spew your hurt and your hate, and then people comment on it. That doesn't work.
It doesn't sustain. It may feel good in the moment, but it is not sustainable. It's not going to last. It can't, because you're still spewing the anger. So it's like releasing the anger is a lot better than holding on to it and spewing it. That's the way I've always looked at it. So
yeah, but you know what? It's like vomiting on a crowded bus. Everybody's going to get a piece of it.
Yeah. Woo. Thanks for that one. Woo!
Had to say it. All right.
So I'm going to share a trauma I had when I was a little girl. You ready?
Yes.
I was on the school bus, and the kid who was sitting in the seat behind me threw up outside of the school bus window, and I watched it, and then I threw up. Then I don't know what happened after that. I was busy throwing up. If anybody else did, I don't know. But that tends to reciprocate throughout. I don't know what it is. So thanks for bringing that memory back. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. All right. I think that's enough for today.
Yeah.
It's always a delight talking to you, and we go into some crazy directions.
I know that's happened.
Healing. It's and finding your voice.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe in the last few months during this pandemic, in self-reflection, I found my voice, and I'm unapologetic about it.
And I'm going to say the same thing. I've found my voice, and I am unapologetic about it. And we just keep pushing, even when we fall back into maybe we didn't. What? I'm still going to do it. So are you.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Custody Matters Live. Hope you have a wonderful, wonderful evening.
Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.